Every single night, you do something absolutely wild. Literally, you lose consciousness completely. Your entire sense of self, it just vanishes. Time skips forward by, 7 or 8 hours, and you have absolutely no memory of the exact moment it happened. It's this total, highly engineered blackout. You know what's crazy? Almost nobody ever questions it. Well, welcome to this explainer. Today, we're going to shine a spotlight on that void and really unpack the bizarre, completely unacknowledged reality of what your brain is actually doing when the lights go out.
So I want you to try something for a second. Try to recall the exact moment you crossed over into sleep last night. You can probably remember lying in bed, right? You might remember the feeling of the sheets or maybe the very last random thought you had. But the actual crossing over? It's just gone. Happens every single time. And we really have to ask why. Well, it's because falling asleep isn't just this passive fading away. It is a deliberate, highly coordinated disappearing act engineered by your brain.
Okay, let's dive into this. Most of us walk around with this expectation that falling asleep is kind of like a smooth dimmer switch. We think our consciousness just gradually, smoothly fades out until it's completely off. But the reality? Oh, the reality is far more jarring. Falling asleep is actually this abrupt, fragmented, and honestly deeply weird neurological system shut-off. Wakefulness doesn't just naturally fade away. It gets actively flipped off, like a switch.
Section 1, the threshold, shutting down the system. So this shutdown happens in a rapid cascade. Step 1, your thalamus, which is basically your brain's sensory relay station, it closes its gates. It literally just stops forwarding information from your eyes, your ears, and your skin. The outside world goes completely quiet, simply because your brain stops listening to it. Then, step 2, this tiny little cluster of neurons called the ventrolateral preoptic nucleus starts rapidly firing chemicals, specifically GABA and galanin. And step 3, those chemicals go on the offensive. They actively attack and suppress the arousal systems that are keeping you awake. And this is exactly why you can't just try harder to fall asleep. You absolutely cannot force a neurological shutdown. You can only really set the stage for it.
And that brings us to our formal definition, sleep onset. That's the technical term for that exact abrupt cascade we were just talking about. And understanding this precise, fleeting moment is absolutely crucial. It's the key to solving the mystery of why our memory completely stops right at the threshold. You see, this mechanism reveals something profound about our memory hardware. To remember literally anything, your hippocampus needs to process and tag the experience. But during sleep onset, hippocampal activity just drops sharply. The fade arrives that actually characterize your waking memory function, they begin destabilizing. So your experience of falling asleep isn't formed and then quickly forgotten. No, without the hippocampus online, the memory is simply never saved to begin with.
If you've ever dealt with a bout of insomnia, this timeline is going to look painfully familiar. It's 3 a.m., you're staring at the clock. At 3:02 a.m., your hippocampus drops offline. Then suddenly, boom, it's 3:04 a.m., and you have this conscious realization of time passing. You feel like you've been awake that whole entire time, but you haven't. Those missing 2 minutes, those were actually moments of sleep. Your internal memory recorder had just shut down before your conscious brain even registered the change.
Section 2, glitches in the system, the hypnagogic gap.
Okay, so right before you fall completely asleep, you might experience something kind of wild. You might see vivid flashes of faces, maybe hear someone call your name, or even see random landscapes. This is called the hypnagogic state. Remember how your external sensory input gets suppressed by the thalamus? Well, your brain's default mode network is still partially active. Because your brain isn't receiving any real-world data, it just starts generating its own. Basically, it's your brain running its creative engine without any anchor to reality. And this brilliantly illustrates just how powerful that glitch can be. The legendary surrealist artist Salvador Dali actually used this specific neurological gap as a creative tool. He would hold a spoon over a plate while he was falling asleep. The exact moment his muscles relaxed at sleep onset, the spoon would drop, the loud crash would wake him up, and he would instantly harvest those bizarre, fleeting hypnagogic visions right into his paintings. Pretty genius, right?
Now, there's another really famous glitch on this threshold, the hypnic jerk. You absolutely know the feeling. You're just drifting off and suddenly, whoa, you feel like you're falling and your whole body violently jolts awake. It's terrifying for sure, but it's completely harmless. It's really just a misinterpretation.
As your motor cortex disconnects to paralyze your body for sleep, your brain sometimes misreads that sudden signal drop as a literal physical fall, and it fires off a massive startle response to save you.
Section 3. Time disappears. Missing hours.
Let's see how this builds on our understanding of memory. During waking time, your working memory is constantly, continuously updating. Every single new moment is tagged relative to the previous one, and that's what gives you a felt sense of duration. But look at sleep time. During non-REM sleep, which makes up the vast majority of your night, working memory is completely suspended. No moments are being tagged at all. Without that continuous recording, your subjective experience of time doesn't just slow down, it literally ceases to exist. Poof, gone.
Section 4. The mechanics and maintenance of sleep. When we compare these different sleep stages, we can really start to see why we remember some dreams vividly and just draw total blanks on others. During REM sleep, which is where the vivid dreaming happens, your hippocampus partially reactivates. But, and this is crucial, a chemical called norepinephrine is completely missing. That makes dream encoding incredibly fragile. If you don't actively rehearse the dream the very second you wake up, it just dissolves. On the flip side, during deep non-REM sleep, the hippocampus is totally inactive. Any dreams that might happen here, they leave absolutely zero trace. Nothing. You know, we often treat sleep like it's some sort of optional luxury, but the data is honestly terrifying. Check this out. After 17 hours awake, your cognitive decline is equal to a blood alcohol content of 0.05%. At 24 hours without sleep, you're operating at 0.10%. That is legally drunk in most places. And the most insidious part of all this, your prefrontal cortex degrades first. That's a part of your brain that handles self-evaluation. Meaning, when you're heavily sleep-deprived, you actually become terrible at noticing how impaired you actually are. Sleep is absolutely not a break from life. It is essential, non-negotiable maintenance. During sleep, your brain's glymphatic system kicks into absolute overdrive. Think of it like a nighttime street sweeper. It acts as a waste clearance network, literally washing away dangerous metabolic byproducts that build up during your waking hours. This includes amyloid beta proteins, which are strongly linked to Alzheimer's disease. Skipping sleep isn't just making you tired, it's actively delaying the critical maintenance your brain needs to simply survive.
So the crucial point here is understanding how to actually get this maintenance done. Sleep onset latency, which is just a fancy way of saying how long it takes you to fall asleep, relies entirely on two systems aligning perfectly. First up is sleep pressure. This is driven by adenosine, a chemical that builds up in your brain the longer you are awake. Second is your circadian clock, which releases melatonin based on darkness. When these two systems align, boom, sleep comes fast. But if you high sleep pressure, yet your internal clock thinks it's high noon because you're staring at a bright blue screen, well, you're going to lie awake for hours dealing with those conflicting signals. To fix that misalignment, you need some highly actionable behavioral solutions. First off, you need a consistent wake time. Every single day, that anchors your circadian clock. Second, you really must avoid bright light after sunset so your natural melatonin can actually rise. And finally, you have to limit your caffeine intake to before noon. Why? Because caffeine literally blocks those adenosine receptors we just talked about, completely masking your true sleep pressure. These specific daily routines, they are exactly what keep your complex biological mechanics running smoothly.
Section 5. The Rebuilt Self, a New You.
The famous philosopher John Locke once argued that personal identity requires a continuous thread of consciousness and memory. Basically, you are you because you remember being you. If we apply his strict standard to sleep, the sheer existence of dreamless sleep is deeply, deeply troubling. If your sense of time and all your memories vanish entirely for 8 straight hours, well, by Locke's rules, dreamless sleep actually breaks the continuous thread of who we are. But modern neuroscientists, they have a completely different, yet equally fascinating view on this. They argue that our sense of self isn't actually a continuous experience at all. Instead, it is a complex, carefully constructed illusion. Every single morning, when those arousal systems turn back on and your hippocampus boots back up, your brain quickly stitches together your consolidated memories and essentially builds a fresh model of you completely from scratch. Which leaves us with this really provocative question to end on. If your consciousness shuts off, your memory systems go entirely offline, and your brain literally flushes out the physical remnants of yesterday before reconstructing your identity at dawn, are you really the same person who lay down last night? Sleep doesn't just rest your body. It completely rebuilds your reality every single day. Definitely something to think about tonight right before the lights go out.